Story time. So some time ago, I posted a 3-minute video here on YouTube about my mother and her volatile response to someone trying to feed her pie. I'm going to explain. We're going to do a really quick recap for those of you who have seen it and want me to get to the point. So essentially, my mother works in home health. She was caring for this patient. The kind of home health that she does isn't just like a quick visit. She stays with the patient for 8 to 12 hours, and then the next healthcare professional comes on for the next 8 to 12 hours. It's shift work, right? So she's there, she's caring for the patient. One of the patient's family members comes by and she tells my mom, "I'd love to make you pie. I make the best pie," whatever. My Caribbean family have never trusted eating food from anyone else. And I remember growing up, if I ever told my mother that somebody gave me a snack and I ate it, or if my mother ever ended up finding out that I ate something from someone, it was like the world would end immediately. Immediately. She could not stress enough to my siblings and I the importance of not eating from other people. And we're going to get into that in just a little bit, okay? So, homegirl, we need to name this family member. I didn't do it in my short because I just don't be having the time with these shorts. You know what I'm saying? To provide ample information. So we'll name the family member Jerry. Jerry. The patient, we'll name him George. Okay? Jerry is a girl, by the way. I don't know. To me, Jerry seems like a male or female name. I don't know. Whatever. So Jerry prepares the pie. Understand, Jerry and George, they do have a dog. They also have a doggy door. So essentially, they open up the doggy door for the dog to go in and out as he or she very well pleases. It appears, though, that specific day, Jerry forgot to open up the doggy door, so the dog decided he was going to take a shit in the house, in the kitchen. My mother and George were over at the dining room table as my mother was trying to feed George, or trying to help with his medication. Something. They were nearby to be able to see the dog take a shit. Okay? Jerry, amidst the pie preparation process, goes over, and as she's walking over there, she says, "Oh dear, I forgot to open up the doggy door." Poor thing. Picks up the shit with her bare hands, the same hands that she was actively preparing the pie with, the pie that she wanted to feed to my mother. Okay? Throws the shit in the trash, rinses the tips of her fingers off, and goes back to preparing the pie. My mother said, "Jackass, I don't believe this. You going to prepare pie with your shitty fingers? You want to feed me pie?" So that didn't bode very well, especially because George took it upon himself to call Jerry mentally unstable as well. So it's not news. You know what I'm saying? Like, the family knows that Jerry is a little off. And if you don't think that there's anything wrong with picking up shit with your bare hands and going to continue preparing food, I don't know, perhaps there's something wrong with you too. Because no. Mm-mm. No. Sprinkle a little bit of shit in some pie? No. Anyways, that all being said, I'm sure everybody wants to know how that whole thing ended up turning out. Jerry didn't think that there was anything wrong. She didn't think it was a big deal. She thought my mother was overreacting. She did not end up kicking my mother out, but they did have a little tit for tat back and forth. And I think what prevented Jerry from officially kicking my mother out is the fact that George was not mentally ill. George was not. A lot of people, when they hear about home health, they assume that the patient needs to be watched. And in some cases they do, because they are not all there. Sometimes they are losing their wits a bit, Not George. George was there. Okay? George was just losing his energy, his strength. And he was just more at risk, I guess, for hurting himself. Okay? I don't want to give too much information about poor George. Okay? Just know he needed home health, and it wasn't because he was losing his mind or gaining Alzheimer's or dementia. Okay? So he was able to support my mother in saying Jerry was wrong. And it was strange for her to do it in front of my mom and think that my mother would be okay with wanting to feed her pie. Now, understand, my mom was never going to eat that pie in the first place. But you can't help but think that there's a little bit of disrespect associated with that. No? Anyways, all of that being said, here's the reason why. And this is where things get a little, I don't want to say superstitious, spooky. Spooky. Because it's pertaining to a specific experience. This is where the story delves a little bit deeper. Both my mother and my grandmother have had experiences with spiritual wickedness, and I know I've mentioned this in some of my previous stories, where people have attempted to harm them by getting their hands dirty another way. Y'all ever see those scary stories, those exorcist stories? There is a lot of truth behind them. I don't want to get into that though. So one of my mother's school friends, unfortunately, ended up eating from one of their classmates. She had invited everyone over. And this wasn't even really a big thing to do. I mean, it was. Inviting people over was always a big thing to do. But it wasn't as celebrated as it is now. You know, like all of these functions and these get-togethers, and it was different. Caribbean culture is always different. The get-together culture is strong. The carnival culture is strong, but like the random invites, come to my house so I can cook you food, not as strong. So ultimately, that's what ended up happening. My mother did not go. Because if you're going to decide that you're not going to eat from someone, you can discreetly not eat from someone at a job function where everybody's at work, somebody brings in food, and you just don't eat it. Versus you're invited to an event and you deliberately don't eat the food. That's a little bit harder to be discreet about it. It almost comes off as disrespectful. So my mom was just like, I'm not going to be able to make it. You know what I'm saying? But the harm was intended for her friend, because the person that extended this invitation wanted information from my mom's friend. And so whatever she did led to that friend just talking. And when I say just talking, y'all ever be in a situation where you're like, I've said too much. You just felt really vulnerable and you start talking about something not expecting to say as much as you've said, and you've said too much and you feel strange about it? Well, that was occurring consistently with my mom's friend. She had no control over how much information she was sharing, and she was aware of it. And she couldn't stop it. Because this person that fed her at this event wanted information from her. She wasn't able to get it the natural way, so she chose another way. And this is something that my grandmother instilled in my mother. And my mother instilled it in me. So it's not always just about cleanliness, even though that's a large part of it. Okay? You cannot eat at everyone's house. I cannot stress that enough, having worked in healthcare as long as I have. You just can't. Not everybody's cleanliness process is the same as yours. It's just not. It's not funny, but shit. But also, jealousy is a strong emotion, you know? It can truly consume someone. Envy, very strong. Not having what someone else has and wanting to have it, and not having the maturity, or just, I don't want to call it sanity, because I don't think that there's anything wrong with seeing something that someone else has and saying, damn, I really want that. But how you react to wanting it is really what tells me who you are, you know? Like, for example, I look up to this one other creator, Kev on Stage. I like that he does his skits and he also does these reaction videos, but he also has these moments where he comes on there and he just sits on camera and he's like, listen, for those of you who are feeling discouraged, you know what I'm saying? I love that he's been able to build his platform just simply off of being authentic. Now, granted, I don't know the man, but he definitely does portray a very strong, authentic image. It's one thing for me to say that's dope and that is what I'm going after. It's another thing to say something completely different. I'm going to just go ahead and say it like, I want what he has and I'm going to take it from him so that I can have it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's very different. And some people like to act like it's all the same. It's not. You can be inspired by someone, love what they do, support them, and not wish that they didn't have it just because you don't have it. So I know that got really deep. It went from a kind of comical, kind of crazy story to a significantly deeper situation, but I hope that everybody takes away from this that one, my limited edition copy of Namakasi is available on my website, www.dirtywordsmith.com. It looks beautiful. It's bigger than the original. It's like the natural size of a comic book. I love the quality. I'm very satisfied. But two, the other takeaway, just be careful with one, the information that you're sharing with people. Don't tell everybody where you are in your process. Don't do it. If something is actively working out, don't just be like, yeah, this is starting. I started. Don't just hush. Hush. Not everybody is happy for you. Okay? Keep that in mind. And don't eat from people. Don't. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Because what's crazy is sometimes you think you really know someone, you don't. I hate to end on such a negative note, so I just want to remind everybody, the original copy is still available. This is now available, okay? Let me know how you guys feel about the other cover versus this cover. Go to my website so that you can compare and contrast, www.dirtywordsmith.com. And consider ordering any one of my other literary masterpieces. There is a brand new episode of Zyla available, my sexy storytelling podcast. I'll have a snippet of it on the end of this. And there is a component of my Patreon now where we can discuss that. And I will begin to start adding subscription tiers to my website. So stick around, subscribe. There's beautiful big things coming for y'all, and I want everybody to be a part of it. Thank you so much. Have a good night.